Newshour Special Edition.
Good evening, namaskar. I'm Shreya Upadhyay. You're watching the Newshour Special Edition. Ladies and gentlemen, in just a few hours from now, India will step into a new economic era, one that could redefine the country's growth story. At the stroke of midnight, GST 2.0 will officially roll out. No more 4 tax slabs. No more taxes on your insurance premiums, no more steep levies on cars as well. Touted by the government as a game changer, the next generation GST reforms will simplify the structure, placing nearly all products into just 2 categories, a 5% slab or an 18% slab. Ahead of this big reset, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the country, explaining why GST 2.0 can propel India into a new age of prosperity. The Prime Minister said that the reform will accelerate India's growth trajectory. He underlined the government's guiding mantra, which is Nagrik Devo Bhava, that is placing the interests of the citizens at the heart of governance. PM Modi stressed on the need for self-reliance, saying India must become Atma Nirbhar to achieve the vision of Vikasit Bharat by 2047. Reinforcing his Swadeshi call, the Prime Minister urged citizens to choose and promote Made in India products at every step, with Garv se kaho ye Swadeshi hai as a slogan.
नवरात्रि के प्रथम दिवस 22 सितंबर को सूर्योदय के साथ ही जीएसटी बचत उत्सव शुरू होने जा रहा है। अब गरीब को, नियो मिडिल क्लास को एक तरह से डबल बोनांजा मिल रहा है। अब देश के नागरिकों के लिए अपने सपने पूरे करना और आसान होगा। नागरिक देवो भवः, नागरिक देवो भवः के जिस मंत्र के साथ आगे बढ़ रहे हैं, नेक्स्ट जनरेशन जीएसटी रिफॉर्म में इसकी साफ झलक दिखाई देती है। गर्व से कहो ये स्वदेशी है, गर्व से कहो मैं स्वदेशी खरीदता हूं, मैं स्वदेशी सामान की बिक्री भी करता हूं।
Now, the opposition has been quick to criticize and take jibes at the Prime Minister after his address. Leading the attack has been the Congress party that says that Modi is taking credit for something that they had been demanding since 2017.
हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस, लाइफ इंश्योरेंस का ऊपर ज्यादा जीएसटी था, इसके खिलाफ ममता बनर्जी आवाज उठाई, फिर पूरा देश में आवाज उठा, फिर ये सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट मजबूर होकर ये पूरा रेट चेंज किया।
प्रधानमंत्री जी को 8 साल के बाद नींद से जागकर ये बताना पड़ रहा है कि नहीं अब हम फिर एक क्रांतिकारी परिवर्तन लेके आए हैं। देखिए, हमने जीएसटी कम कर दी। प्रधानमंत्री जी, जो लाखों करोड़ रुपए देश की जनता के जेब से टैक्स के नाम पे लूटा गया है, वो पैसा उनके खातों में वापस कीजिए।
7 से 8 साल आपने उन गरीबों को, उन बैकवर्डों को, मध्यम वर्गीयों को, जो सूक्ष्म उद्योग खोले थे, जो लघु उद्योग खोले थे, सभी को आपने तो मार दिया। क्योंकि बिहार का चुनाव नजदीक है, अगर जीएसटी माफ नहीं होता तो आपको मालूम होना चाहिए कि बिहार में लोगों को मुक्की खानी पड़ती और बिहार से इनका विदाई होता।
उन्होंने जो अपने 11 साल में लगातार जीएसटी बढ़ाई है, उसी जीएसटी में थोड़ा हिस्सा वो कम करके अपनी वाहवाही लेने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं।
All right, let me open up this debate. I'm joined by Sanju Verma, BJP's national spokesperson, Mr. Ajay Bagga, market expert, Advocate Nikhil, Jain, political analyst, as well as Dr. Pooja Mishra, Samajwadi Party national spokesperson, also joining us. Good evening, namaskar to all of you. Pooja Mishra, can I begin by asking you, if the opposition had these ideas of GST and reforms that come in with it, why didn't the opposition get it when they were in power?
Shreya, good evening to you and good evening to all my fellow panelists. Because the very current Prime Minister, when Congress proposed GST, opposed it. Ironically, our government is running, in scientific research we do hit and trial method, and our government government is running on that only. The policies are mad. In an evening, our Prime Minister comes and announces demonetization and introduces rupees 2000 note. And then also that is restricted. And what happens? What the country gains from that? Zero gain. And then again, our Prime Minister comes and introduces GST. GST, okay. Now Prime Minister is saying, kal se utsav manayenge. So until now, was it Loot Mahotsav? The GST was imposed to do Loot Mahotsav. Until now, they are doing Loot Mahotsav. Now they are saying Swadeshi. I'm talking about the Swadeshi in 2017. What government aimed? Government aimed to contribute 25% to the GDP from the manufacturing sector in 2017. And at that time, that contribution was 17%. And which decreases to 14% in 2024. They are just creating propaganda. Why? Because their policies are failing everywhere. They failed at foreign policy. Now they're talking Swadeshi. And how can you identify which one is Swadeshi? We are importing from, in last 1 year, the import from China has jumped by 25%. The trade deficit with China, we are approx 100 billion. And the government is not talking about Made in India. The government is talking about Make in India. Like the manufactured articles will be imported from other countries, then we will assemble here.
Okay.
Then how can you identify share?
Okay, let me get in a response from Sanju Verma. Pooja Mishra. Sanju Verma, go ahead.
You know, Pooja, first and foremost, you made so many allegations at the BJP-led Modi government. Let me rebut each one of them. Shreya, your audience needs to know a couple of things. GST 2.0 is the biggest indirect tax reform in the last 78 years in post-independent India's history, and I'll tell you why. More than 95% of the items of mass consumption are either taxed at 0% or 5%. And everything that was earlier taxed at 28% has now fallen into the 18% bracket. But this is not just about tax rates alone. We know 40% is only applicable to pan masala, zarda, tobacco, high-end cars, fuel guzzling sedans and SUVs, what have you. I'll tell you why this is the biggest indirect tax reform. The Vijay Kelkar committee recommended GST way back in 2004. Who was in power from 2004 to 2014? It was the Congress party. And why could the Congress not implement GST? It is not because of opposition from the BJP. It was opposition from two Congress chief ministers. One was Prithviraj Chavan, who was the chief minister of Maharashtra, and he said, "Kuch bhi ho jaye, hum GST ko Maharashtra mein implement hone nahi denge." And the second person who took up arms against GST when Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister was Bhupinder Singh Hooda, the erstwhile Congress Chief Minister of Haryana. So, for the Congress party and its Darbari ecosystem to take potshots at the BJP and Prime Minister Modi is absolutely unacceptable because the BJP could forge a consensus. The Congress's Darbari ecosystem could not even convince its own chief ministers. Okay. Therein lies the basic difference. I will always say, Shreya, you know, an idea is only as good as its execution. And what makes Prime Minister Narendra Modi different from everybody else and his contemporaries is this. He not only dreams big, he not only has grand vision, but he has the ability to translate that grand vision into seamless execution so that it means something for the common citizens of this country.
Okay.
And the final point is this. Shreya, just bear with me for 20 seconds. Kya kiya Modi Sarkar ne very quickly? Just in the budget this year, a few months back, it was said that now if you have an annual income of 12 lakh rupees, you need to pay zero income tax. And if you're a salaried individual, if you have an annual income of 12.75 lakhs, you need to pay zero tax. I think that's a big move. Okay. Imagine earlier the standard deduction was zero. Today it is 75,000 rupees per annum. Okay. The tax rebate was 2,500. Okay. Today the tax rebate alone is 25,000 rupees.
Okay, all right. I'm going to come to the execution bit and ask Ajay Bagga on that. But before that, I want Nikhil Jain's response to what Sanju Verma has said, and then I get in Ajay Bagga. Nikhil, your opening remarks.
So, Shreya, the reason I was laughing in the middle of Sanju's statement was because she said that the GST reforms 2.0 are the biggest tax reforms, indirect tax reforms in the country in the past 78 years. So, is my very good friend Sanju Verma saying that implementation and bringing the GST was a smaller thing than these reforms? I think that's a laughable statement to make, number one. Number two, she says that the Prime Minister dreams big. Certainly, he dreams big. He dreamt of 400 seats. He got 240. And that is the spit and substance of it, that the Prime Minister certainly dreams big, he certainly talks big, but to quote my good friend Sanju, the proof of an idea is in its execution. The Prime Minister has grand ideas, a lot of us, applaud him for those ideas. The idea behind demonetization to do away with black money, wonderful idea. The idea behind GST to have a good indirect tax system, wonderful idea. But where Prime Minister Modi and this government fails thoroughly is the execution of it. What happened to demonetization? The amount of hard cash circulating in the economy is at an all-time high, much beyond what it was before demonetization. What happened to the implementation of GST? It destroyed the entire textile industry and the garment industry of the country. Hundreds of thousands of businesses in the country shut shop because the GST system was so very complex and the government never figured to fix it. So far as this idea of a sin slab being there is concerned, I think it's very sort of judgmental and primitive to say that people who drive an expensive car are doing some sort of a sin, or people who drive, have a certain drink are having some sort of a sin. And be that as it may, let me also tell your viewers that even a Maaza drink is taxed at 40%. Even a fruity drink, even an Appy Fizz, all of those things are also taxed at 40%. It's not just the Mercedes and the Bentleys that are taxed at 40%. A Fortuner car is taxed at 40%. So let's not pretend that only the sin goods are at a 40% slab. And lastly, with the with the continuation of the cess system in the GST, you have an effective number of tax slabs at 28. 3 are the primary tax slabs, but if you actually open the CBEC website, you'll notice that there are a number of differential cesses on a number of different products, which takes the total to 28 effective tax slabs. And and she also made this very interesting point that it was the Congress leaders and the Congress chief ministers who were opposing the GST, and I think that speaks to the beauty of the Congress and how it inculcated democracy, that the Prime Minister of the country wanted to bring out a reform, but certain chief ministers felt that that reform was perhaps not the best idea, and they had the space to voice their opinions. That is how it should be in a democracy. And also, is she saying that the BJP or any senior leader from the BJP did not oppose the GST while the Manmohan Singh government was in touch? They certainly did. But what
Sanju Verma, before I get you in, Nikhil Jain, let me get in Ajay Bagga. Ajay Bagga, you've heard all sides, and I want to understand from you the execution bit of it. Some say that this is a great change, this is a great reform, much needed at the time where the Indian economy is expanding and we are facing geopolitical challenges. Some say that, look, the execution is where it matters and probably it's not going to achieve the target that it has set out with. What is your take on it?
Yeah, I think it will be clear in a couple of months, because we are at peak festive season when a lot of the FMCG and durables and auto sales happen. We are expecting a big boost right from tomorrow. So first indicators will come in about a week's time, and I think in a couple of months we'll have a good idea of the success of this move. Overall, if you see, you mentioned geopolitics, I think that is the big issue. The world is moving from globalization to one of protectionism, isolationism. In that, you have to boost domestic consumption. So that way, it's a welcome move to cut a consumption tax. This will help domestic consumption. It will increase the purchasing power. It will lead to premiumization. It will lead to formalization also, because affordability will increase in the formal sector. And a lot of especially in the food items, most of the volumes are in the informal segment. So you're creating a level playing field with this 0% and 5% consumption tax. So I think it will have a big boost into the economy. The fortune for India is that 60% of our GDP is domestic consumption. So that gives us also inherent strength, and a move like this gets leveraged then in an economy like India.
So you're fairly positive about the kind of reforms that have been undertaken. Dr. Pooja Mishra, you want to come in on this? You heard somebody who's a market expert say that, look, this is going to have a positive impact.
And
This will boost consumption, which is much needed at this time for the country.
Yes, and he knows very well that they have to rectify their, because they failed at the foreign policy. When the America imposed 50% tariff, that we lost our market. And when we lost our market, we need to have a market. And in India, we have GST. So the articles are not affordable. So rectifying, our government is trying to rectify, and I'm not saying that it will not help our business persons. It will definitely help us. But
you know, Dr. Mishra, even if the government is trying to deal with and counter the 50% tariffs, what's the harm in that? You are at least doing something to counter that, the unpredictability coming in from United States of America every day, right?
The harm is that you follow the hit and trial method. When it was Galwan, we said that we'll boycott the China, and now we are having 100 billions of trade deficit, and we are importing everything from there. We are assembling here. Now we are trying to create a market in our own country, but not the manufacturing. The manufacturing has declined to 14%, which was in 17% in 2017. Part the shares of GDP in our country. Now you are saying that how are you gonna decide whether it is Swadeshi or it is from foreign? The articles, articles are manufactured in foreign. Here are assembled. You are saying that go for the Swadeshi, go for the Swadeshi. This is just, making policy first, then imposing it.
Let me get in Sanju Verma to respond to you. Sanju Verma, a lot of talk about manufacturing here domestically in India, but Dr. Pooja Mishra says, and the opposition in fact has been saying it, that the manufacturing sector hasn't seen the kind of growth that it should have or the government expected it to have.
Let me make a couple of things clear for the benefit of your audience. GDP growth in first quarter of FY 25-26, 7.8%, manufacturing growth 7.6%, construction growth 7.7%, services growth 9.3%, tertiary sector growth 9.7%, inflation currently 2.07%, food inflation minus 0.69%, WPI, wholesale inflation less than 0.5%, Standard & Poor's, the global rating giant, after a long gap of 18 years, improved, upgraded India's sovereign rating from BBB- to BBB on the back of fiscal consolidation and excellent economic management by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This is what S&P said, not Sanju Verma. 25 crore people uplifted from poverty, Shreya, in the last 11 years, and guess what? The banking NPAs are down to 2.1% and net NPAs to less than 0.3% during the Congress's corrupt regime. Gross NPAs were 6% plus. And my final point is this. I really don't care. Nikhil Jain says, I found this laughable, that laughable. Each time Nikhil speaks, he makes a laughing stock of himself. I would like to focus on what the Prime Minister said. He said a very important thing. He said GST 2.0 has come to fruition because of collaboration between the center and states. And I think that's a very important statement, Shreya. It shows that cooperative federalism is not something that Prime Minister Modi pays lip service to. Cooperative federalism is something wherein we walk the talk, and the best example of that is that today 41% of the center's tax divisible pool is shared with states. During Manmohan Singh's time, only 29.5% was shared with states. So yahan par debate par parli karaya karo.
Okay. Nikhil Jain, respond to it. Sanju Verma, of course, you spoke about cooperative federalism. Congress leader Jairam Ramesh has questioned that as well. The fact that the states had been asking for compensation for the revenue loss that they say they will face because of these reforms. But Nikhil Jain, go ahead, respond to Sanju Verma.
Absolutely. Shreya, so first of all, let's understand this one thing, that the way the GST Council is structured, right now the BJP, the political party, has a majority in it. It doesn't really matter whether they are heeding to cooperative federalism or not. And you've already quoted Mr. Jairam Ramesh talking about it, that how this government is time and again in news from various states that are run by the opposition. And it's not just the Congress party, by the way. Pretty much every single state that's run by an opposition party keeps on showing to everybody with proof that the government and the government of India is not releasing their GST dues. So I don't see that as an example of cooperative federalism. So far as Sanju ji की पढ़ी लिखी पढ़ लिख के वो आती हैं डिबेट पे और वो इतनी सारी stats और figures लेके आती हैं, I can come up with a bunch of selective stats and figures as well, but I don't want to just confuse your viewers. There is no point of giving quarter figures and claiming that food inflation is down because you're not accounting for how food prices rise when the monsoon is bad, what happens during winters, what happens during summers. And I'm sure she understands and knows all of that. She's an economist. She's a very smart economist. She knows that, and that is how she's trying to fool your viewers. Today she also quoted about how in the past 18 years our international investment ratings are one of the best in the past 18 years. She's forgetting that in the past 18 years, 11 years, it has been her government, and the 7 years prior to that, there was the global recession, which Manmohan Singh government dealt with very amazingly, and ratings for across the world, countries across the world, especially developing countries, went down. And it's very, interesting to me and amusing to me, in fact, that today she has a lot of faith in international ratings. When you get a hunger index, international hunger index, tab Sanju and all the other BJP spokespersons are going to sit here and say that bahari sajish hai, Bharat ko giraya ja raha hai, and this and that. And lastly, on the point of NPAs, your viewers are free to Google and check the amount of write-offs that this government has given. Write-off, now Sanju will say, oh no, you can still recover the loan even if you write off, but that's not how practically it is. The way you reduce the NPA figures is that you write off the loans. Therefore, it is no longer a non-performing asset. You have assumed that this is no longer an asset. To call a non-performing asset a non-asset, that is what this government is doing. Just mixing with the numbers, even if it comes at a significant loss to the exchequer, to public sector banks and to the public at large, just because they want to manage the headlines.
Okay, Dr. Pooja Mishra, go ahead, 30 seconds, then Sanju Verma responds.
When they're talking about the new reforms in GST, they're not talking about the 1.47 crore losses which we're going to face it. And during the COVID, the government took loans from the state, and that also they owe to the state. And she's saying that DSC is cooperative. The governments, the states cooperated with the central government because this reform might relax some of the pressure from the people. It's a festival time, they might get the market. So that's why they cooperated. It's not like that it's a very big decision, very big revolution. I would say when Prime Minister says that the reforms of GST is Utsav, then definitely the imposition of GST was a loot mahotsav until now. That's why you have to now tackle it. And again, the government is indulged into making policy. I always say hit and trial method. Let's impose the policy and then we'll manage the fallout.
Headed southwards. April retail inflation 3.16%. May retail inflation 2.82%. June retail inflation 2.1%. July retail inflation 1.55%. August retail inflation 2.0%
is the fallout when it
Overall, we have had 3 weeks of pretty strong markets.
Yeah.
So markets are welcoming this. The sectors that benefit immediately are consumer staples, or what we call FMCG, durable immediately are consumer staples, or what we call FMCG, durables, white goods, automobiles, lower end automobiles, tractors get very cheap.
Yeah.
Tractors will see a benefit. Insurance, you mentioned in your opening segment, insurance also benefits. So there is a wide swath of sectors that will benefit. We must keep it in mind that over the last 5 years, GST collections have gone up from 11 lakh crores to 22 lakh crores. And that has created the space for the government to now cut this GST tax at the right time. And it's timed well for the festive season. It will take off. It will compensate for the $30 billion odd revenue loss that could happen if the US tariffs stay in place. I personally feel those are more posturing and they will go away by the end of the year. But even if we lose the whole year, 30 billion revenue loss was what we were anticipating. That gets made up by this cut. So overall positive share, quite positive.
All right. So let's wait and watch. As you said, Ajay Bagga, the next 1 week and the next few weeks, in fact, and months will be important to understand the kind of impact that GST 2.0 will have. I'll have to leave it here. Sanju Verma, Ajay Bagga, Nikhil Jain, as well as Dr. Pooja Mishra. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us tonight and sharing your perspective. Viewers, with that, it's time for a short break. News and updates continue on the other side.